A wise man once said, Arizona State is the best second choice you'll ever make. And for the Sun Devil football program, the influx of transfers over the last few years has been a critical component in ASU's resurgence. And that list includes linebacker Jordan Crook, who became a key part of ASU's defense after transferring in from Arkansas. And now, with a year in the system under his belt, Crook is likely to play a critical role in helping the Sun Devils defend their Big 12 title. On this episode, we discuss his first year as a Devil, the makeup of the defense, lessons from the playoff run, what truly sets Texan players apart, and so much more. Should note there were some technical issues during the course of the recording of this episode, but I think you'll have a great time listening to the insight from Jordan. All right, Jordan, we're going to start off with a question from your teammate, Ben Coleman. He wants to know who you think is the best dressed member on this team and what is it about their sense of style that you appreciate?
The best dress on the team. Let me see. I think I like Ben's style. I think Ben's style pretty cool. Like I think it's pretty appropriate. Like I feel like he got a good sense of like, you know what I'm saying, like he know how to dress, like, you know what I'm saying, know what to wear at certain times, at certain points and things like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like I'm into like a lot of clothes and shoes and stuff like that too. So like, you know what I'm saying? I just be paying attention to like people fits and like I feel like, whenever it's like, whatever occasion it may be, like he always come, you know what I'm saying? With the appropriate fits, like with some nice stuff, like, you know what I'm saying, things like that.
Good deal. All right, a vote for Ben. So obviously, coming close to spring ball getting started up here, but you guys had some time after the season to enjoy some time off, and it sounds like you and some teammates had a trip to Puerto Rico. What was that experience like? Sharing that with some teammates, and what was some of the best food you had on the island?
Oh yeah, nah, no doubt. I went to Puerto Rico with Wyatt, CJ, and Clayton, and man, it was a great time. Like we just went out there, and honestly, we just kind of kicked it for like a couple days, and just spent a whole lot of time on the beach, and just really explored Puerto Rico for real. It was my first time going, Clayton's first time, CJ's first time, so like. You know, say it was new for all of us. We hopped on the jet skis and things like that. It was cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? When we went hiking, we did a whole lot of different things, like but the best food, like let me see, it was a whole lot, it was so much different food. um I don't know. Honestly, man, we ate like we probably ate like maybe like three real like meals. We were just doing like a lot of snacking, to be honest. Like when we were out there, we doing a lot of snacking. But nah, it was some good food for the most part. It was definitely good for me to get out there and experience that and like see new things. Like it was definitely different for me, and it was definitely a great experience.
What does it say about maybe the program culture that you're taking these trips, with with a bunch of teammates there? Sometimes during the off seasons, some teams, guys which might go their separate way and reconvene later. But it seems like the bond that you guys have in the locker room is extending out to the off season.
Yeah, nah, like these like I say like some teams, like, you know what I'm saying, you got teams where like, you know what I'm saying, like the people in the locker room, like they just hang out like within the locker room and like things like that. But you know what I'm saying, they go home and you don't really talk. You got your own separate, groups of homeboys and things like that. Like, but I feel like here, you know what I'm saying, like, the people that we in the locker room with, like the same people we kick it with, like outside the locker room, like, you know what I'm saying. I think that's big and it's important. Like, you know what I'm saying, like with having like success, like everybody really tied in, like, know what I'm saying? Usually the people that's in our locker room, like, you know what I'm saying, they got the same type of like friends outside. Like everybody kind of just tied in together, like, you know what I'm saying? It's one big family for real. So like it's everybody definitely tied in and right real tight, and even bringing the new guys in, like, they didn't have like a hard transition coming in. It seemed like it's been pretty smooth for them. So it's been good this spring.
And speaking of those new guys, now that you're one of those new guys just a year ago, but now with a year under your belt, it's kind of a veteran. How's that experience like? Coming in and welcoming in the new crop. Having that experience as a guy who was in their shoes a year ago.
Just kind of showing them like the little ins and outs and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of being a leader and showing them, like, you know what I'm saying, by example, or know what I'm saying, just giving them little tidbits and things like that, like, you know what I'm saying, helping them out throughout the locker room and, you know what I'm saying, just getting to know them and things like that. And, you know what I'm saying, just making it a comfortable transition for them guys, like, you know what I'm saying, making sure, like, you know what I'm saying, like everything's smooth, like, you know what I'm saying, 'cause you never know what folks thinking, like, when they first get to somewhere, a new place and things like that. So I just want to make it smooth for them guys.
Now that you've had a year in this program and as a member of the Sun Devil team, how have you seen kind of the program culture evolve from perhaps maybe this point last year to after having the success that you guys were able to do and where it's headed right now?
Man, honestly, just like it's just a testament to everybody in the building. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like from what I'm saying, from Coach Dilly on down, like, you know what I'm saying, even the higher ups above Coach Dilly, like, you know what I'm saying, everybody like just like, came in, like, put everybody put their best foot forward and everybody just working hard. Like, I feel like, if we do that again this season, like we'll be able, what I'm saying, have the have the same results, if not better.
So of course, there's some new faces here in the heading into this spring ball session, but also some of the younger guys on this team, returning to the program. Throughout the course of the kind of the winter workouts, who are some of the younger guys that maybe have caught your eye and are primed to make a splash during spring ball?
Um, I like AJ, tight end. AJ, like I feel like he got great size. Like, what I'm saying, just seeing what I've been seeing in workouts. The combo workouts and things like that. Like, I really like him confident. Like, what I'm saying, and his size and things like that. Just look like gonna be a real good player. Even Kamari, just got the other tight end like Kamari. Like Kamari work hard. I feel like he want to work like one of the most hard working guys. Like, what I'm saying, he very consistent with how he worked. Um, and it's even more about it's more guys like but those two like just for like as far as I've seen like as much as I've seen in my workout group, and those are some guys that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, I saw AJ, met him in person the other day at that media session, and that guy just looks different. He looks like an NFL tight end. He
Yeah,
certainly cuts an imposing figure.
no doubt.
All right, so want to go back a little bit, to this past season. Obviously, you guys really, exceeded all the at least the external expectations, and really, put on a magical run. What do you think that you and your teammates said to the world by leading the Sun Devils to a conference title and a playoff run?
Man, I just feel like what I'm saying with what we did. Like I feel like what we told the world. What I'm saying, just I feel like what we showed and what we proved was that we had a hard nosed football team and that know what I'm saying? We had a team that was gonna fight to the last second. And honestly we had a team that was gonna, just constantly just wear down on you, like, one of them teams that's just nagging, like they always gonna nag at you, keep nagging at you, like, what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like we kept on showing that day in and day out, like, what I'm saying, just with how we were working and what I'm saying, just the things we were doing on the daily to be able to go out there on Saturdays and show that, you know.
So looking back at that Peach Bowl loss, coming so close and kind of being losing the game in the fashion that you guys did, just being so close to pulling off that victory. As a team that kind of thrived with a chip on the shoulder, how much fuel to the fire does the Peach Bowl add to you guys heading into 2025?
Yeah, like I was saying, like it's just like I said, it's one of those things. Like, we've put everything from the 24 season behind us. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, like that's one thing. That's it's that it's in the back of everybody's mind. You know what I'm saying? You be crazy if they we not thinking about that, using it as fire. You know what I'm saying? For this upcoming season. You know what I'm saying? Just to know. You know what I'm saying, that it can get like that and get to that point. You know what I'm saying? It's everybody it's ultimately it's past this. We've moved on from that. What I'm saying, that season over with. But ultimately, we do have that. You know what I'm saying, in our back pocket. We using that as fuel. You know what I'm saying, and we gonna use it the right way. You know.
So even though a lot of you guys are saying like 2024 is over and you guys have the eyes towards the future, what are some of your favorite moments of that 2024 season for you personally that you'll be looking back on for years to come?
Honestly, like, I mean, the Peach Bowl was like a big memory. Like, you know what I'm saying. Like, I mean, Iowa State was a big memory. Make like Big 12 game. Like, um, you know, I think even Texas Tech game, like, for me was a big game. But you know, it, I felt like Utah was like a big game. BYU, like, man, like I don't know, like it's so many like. you know what I'm saying, it's so many like just good moments that were going on, you know what I'm saying? Just not even just for me, but like, you know what I'm saying, just for the team, like, you know what I'm saying? It was just happy to see, you know what I'm saying, like, what can happen, when you do make it that far, and everybody do get, like succession and everybody do succeed and things like that. And you know what I'm saying, it's just all a good time, and ultimately everybody eat, and it was just good to see that. Whether it was, anybody, I was happy for anybody, like whatever it may be, like, so it was just cool to, just really enjoy the season and look back on it for real. I couldn't even just tell you like my favorite moment. I had a lot of favorite moments.
So for years, Arizona State football was kind of had the sleeping giant tag, and people were wondering when would happen, and then you guys were able to kind of capture the Valley's attention and the hearts and minds of Sun Devil fans. What was the most rewarding aspect of being a part of a group of guys that was able to kind of to wake that giant up?
Like I really feel like the biggest thing, like for me, was just knowing, like, like I really say a lot of people carrying us out. Like I think that was the biggest thing. Like I think like just looking at this point last year, like leading up to the season last year, like just to look at like how much like that ranking, like with us being last, was being preached, like, you know what I'm saying, like just things like that, like, you know what I'm saying, like Coach Dilly made sure it sat in our mind, like, and I like it just like anything else, like nobody want to be in last, like, you know what I'm saying, like it ain't nobody want to be in last. I think like a lot of cats on the team last year really did take that personal. The leaders took it personal, and the guys behind followed. And I think we just took it and ran with it. We were hungry, we still hungry. A lot of them same guys that, what I'm saying, that led that last year back this year. So like, what I'm saying, a lot of people, we excited. We excited.
What was it like just seeing, the Valley activated, as Kenny likes to say, the sellout crowds, the hundreds, thousands of fans that greeted you guys, on the buses leaving and arriving back at the facility, and just seeing so much positive energy in this massive fan base and kind of getting the Valley behind you guys.
Yeah, nah, man, it's great to see that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody love winning. Like, and it's good to see, like, when when we able to come through, and win, and just see like how much support can really be behind us. And it's really cool to see that. Like I said, like ultimately, I feel like, when the football program winning, like everything great, like everything just, what I'm saying, once if football win, like everything will flow. Like I think it's just how I feel about it. Maybe a little selfish, but what I'm saying, like I feel like when football winning, what I'm saying, like everything just feel good. Like everybody feel part of something, and what I'm saying, I feel like it's the big thing. So it's cool to see everybody get behind it. I know a lot of people excited for this upcoming season. I know we're not gonna let down.
And you yourself on the field really became a really critical member of this defense as the season went on. When you look back at 2024, where do you feel that you made the biggest improvements in your game from start to finish?
I really feel like just really becoming a bigger leader. And ultimately like getting better in the passing game. Like, I feel like my run game all season was pretty consistent, but I feel like at the beginning, pretty consistent, pretty good this like our last season. But um, towards the last half of the season, I feel like started to make more impact in the passing game. I think that's where I kind of made my strides at. And just ultimately, like when times were getting harder, like, what I'm saying, like during course times and things like that, just, I'm saying, just being vocal, like, what I'm saying, being me steady, like, what I'm saying, just talking, keeping that energy up, being vocal, and, I'm saying, just flying around, and just playing hard. And I think just a lot of people on my teammates look to that, and what I'm saying, just look like, and kind of followed. And I think it's real cool to just see that, and know that I got some good teammates like that, and what I'm saying, that do look to me in times like that. What I'm saying, just, just to know I, go hard, and they follow that. So it's cool to see that, honestly.
One of the cool moments off the field last season, I thought, was when you had some car problems, and Parker Jones, who Parker Jones, who's been a longtime sponsor of Speak of the Devils, and many other ASU fans really kind of came to your aid, and we're able to get you a new SUV. First off, how's the ride going so far, and also then what was it like just to have so many people, that Sun Devil community kind of rally behind you?
Nah, it's been great, man. That's my truck. Like, even like I've been having teammates, like, man, we'll be 4 or 5 deep. They always want rides and stuff like that. And it's been cool, man. And like I said, I thank Parker again. And just I go back to, just the how the value, like you said, like how they came together again. Just something like that. And like the matter, like the quickness they did it, what I'm saying? Like just to see that, you know what I'm saying? And for me being like I ain't been here like 3 4 years, you know what I'm saying? I just got here like so, it just to see that and how how fast things happen. It just say a lot about the people out here in Arizona, and what I'm saying, it really like a testament to like, what I'm saying, it is really good people out here. And it's not that's not like nobody just making that up. And that's really like a real recruiting pitch. Like it's real good people out here. I can say that much.
So I want to go back a little bit to the start of your football journey. How did you initially kind of get started with the sport?
I started playing when I was 4. Like I kind of already knew like it kind of probably was gonna be my route for real. Like, but I started playing when I was 4, and started playing a little early. Like I started playing like I was playing up when I was at 4. I think I was playing with the 5 year olds as well. But started playing flag, and it just kind of went from there. I kind of had my mind made up by like 5th grade. Like I already knew, like I was going to strength and conditioning with the middle school at that point. I wasn't even supposed to be going, but nice. I've been on this same track for a long time, and like I said, it's my last season. I mean, I'm ready to finish it out the right way, and what I'm saying, get to the next level. That's where I envision myself this year, and just taking every day in, and treating it like a pro every day, like coming up here, just being consistent, just but it's been a long journey. Like I mean, I've been enjoyed it. Like I had the ups and downs for real. And I've enjoyed every party. When go back on none of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I love where I'm at now. Like Arizona State. Like it's a great place to be. Like great people. It's everything you need to succeed. I'm just looking to finish it out the right way.
When getting the start when you did, so young and playing up against the older kids. Do you remember like your first touchdown or some of the first big plays in your early days? As a young kid.
That's the thing. Like I couldn't like I can't even just go back and tell you like none of the like nothing like no. I got a couple old clips like from way back when, but I cannot tell you like I don't remember no like just crazy plays. Like the only thing I can remember from I can remember little league stuff, like some little league stuff, like just some crazy plays that I made. But like my first like it's like I said, I started at 4. Like my mind wasn't even in it at 4. Like what I'm saying. So I couldn't tell you what I was doing. I just know I was playing flag football.
When did you know that like you were really good and that your love of football and your ability at football could take you places?
I think it really might have been like it might have been like 6th grade. It was really around like 6th grade, 7th grade. When I kind of started, like we started, I expanded. I went to a different team, and kind of got around like a team like they had like a lot of more like better kids, like honestly. And that's kind of when I figured it out. I'm like, yeah, nah, I think this is gonna be it for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and ever since then, like, I really feel like a lot of it had to do with my pops too. Like, what I'm saying, just with, getting me around the right people, and then like, what I'm saying, having me, training at such a young age. What I'm saying, like him instilling that in me, like, it had got to the point to where like by the time I got to, 5th, like 6th, 7th grade, like I just wanted to go do things on my own. And I feel like them same things that he taught me way back then, like the same things like that's I'm saying still going on now, like so I still like base my foundation on them same teachings, and just having a hard work ethic and seeing it from him, like I think those things just mean a lot, and I think that's how I feel about it.
So of course, coming up in Texas where football is king, well, how much did that play a role in just kind of shaping your path?
Yeah, nah, playing playing high school football in Texas, well, I mean just Texas in general, but I mean, I really like high school in particular. Like, I feel like, obviously, I'm gonna tell you it's the best of the best. Like, I feel like just like uh, going back, like you playing in this environment every week. Like, you know what I'm saying? City shut down, like everything shut down. You playing in stadiums. You playing with, they come with 10 to 20,000 a week. Like, and then you know what I'm saying. You get the playoffs and they shutting everything down, and you playing in these huge crowds and things like that every week. Not to mention you playing against great talent. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's plenty cats go D1 in 6A Division 1 football, like in Dallas, like in Texas, like, you know what I'm saying. And then you get to the big games, you get to state games, and you playing the AT&T in front of 60,000. Like, you know what I'm saying. I think just things like that build you for when you get to college and then you come back to Dallas for the Big 12 championship. You know what I'm saying? You already done you already done seen that when you was 18. You know what I'm saying? So like just things like that, like you can't every state you can't you're not getting that in every state. Like it's just being honest. You're not just I feel like things like that, like people not I mean, people not gonna talk about that, but like that type of stuff matter. Like it ain't you know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of kids like to be they be prepared for things like that. The game not it's not too big for them in moments like that, and just you know what I'm saying, just the preparation and things like that. I feel like just Texas they come with the whole package. You know what I'm saying? I feel like just being in that environment, you know what I'm saying, just consistently on the day in, day out, you know what I'm saying, and then throughout the season, the off season, and you know what I'm saying, with the competition that you around, like it definitely can shape you. I know me being at Duncanville it definitely made me a lot of for what I'm who I am and what I am, like happened at, Duncanville.
So obviously, you're part of the Texas Tempe pipeline, and so many Texans on this roster. Obviously, you guys are very talented football players, but how do you feel like kind of the overall Texan infusion, the movement overall, has shaped the course of Sun Devil football, and just maybe perhaps on and off the field with that Texan mentality?
Yeah, now I feel like just with Texas Cash, like, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna get a certain type of player on the field, but I really feel like the biggest impact, like, you know what I'm saying, even with our program, not even just the on the field stuff, like with the Texas kids, but I feel like, you know what I'm saying, you can look to every Texas kid, like, on our roster, like, and you'll see, like, they got something to them, like, I feel like the Texas kids just got a little, you know what I'm saying, like a little something, a little, like, I don't know, a different, like, little feel, like, I don't know how to explain it, like, but you can just tell, like, I don't know, like, if I was talking to another Texas person, they'll know what I'm talking about. Like, they just kind of got like a different, like, a little walk. And, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that just, the amount of people we got in our locker room, a lot of the Texas cats, they all, we all different in our own way, but I feel like, we all bring something to the locker room, and I definitely feel like it's made a big impact on, you know what I'm saying, the team, and, you know what I'm saying, whether it's on the field or off the field. But, I just, so just think about, all the Texas people on our team and, just think about them individually, who they are, things like that. Like, that person, like he this or he that, you know what I'm saying? Like, just things like that, like just those little things. I feel like, having that in the locker room, like that's big. Like nobody ever really gonna talk about it, but what I'm saying? Like it definitely means a lot. I feel like, having this many Texas people on the roster, and especially like, out here in Arizona, like that's not like I know a lot of people like that's probably think like back home probably think that's not common like because a lot of people from home like probably wouldn't come this far like what I'm saying, but now like to see that we done we did that, we came out here, what I'm saying, we got this going, the Texas Tech movement and things like that, like, and now we got a lot of more kids from home that want to, what I'm saying, come out this way, and see what Arizona got the got to offer.
Being a college football player is a lot of work, and lots on your plate. In terms of just the academics, the athletic side of things, especially the modern college football landscape. So, what are the things that drive you on a day in day out basis?
Man, like I think just a consistent grind, like, what I'm saying, just like really want to come up here, like, what I'm saying, the process, like, I think that's what I'm attracted to most, like, what I'm saying, the coming up here, the working hard, the going to get it every day, like, I think that's just one thing, like that was like I said, like, I go back to, what I'm saying, my pop, he instilled it so early in me, like, I'm saying, I think I love that, like I love that part, like I ain't never really been result driven, like I always been process driven. I feel like, what I'm saying, I always like I want to come up here every day, you know what I'm saying, go give him my all, you know what I'm saying, and I really feel like the thing like that really drive me most, like, you know what I'm saying, just past experience, like I said, I've been through ups and downs with this, like, you know what I'm saying, and just keeping them things in the back of my mind, using them as fuel to the fire. I feel like, I think that's what drives me most. Like, you know what I'm saying, just waking up here knowing, you know what I'm saying, I know I know how I feel. Like, you know what I'm saying, when things weren't always like this for real. Like, you know what I'm saying, when I was down, like, and how the folks treated me for real. Like, I know how I keep all that in the back of my mind, use that as fire for real, and just like this, just little things like that, for the most part. But so I think the biggest thing is just a consistent grind. Like, I feel like I love that the most, like the coming up here, the working out, the sprints, the running, like, what I'm saying, just the watching film, like, what I'm saying, just the stuff that day in and day out, like day in day out type of stuff, like, what I'm saying, that a lot of kids like might not typically like, what I'm saying, the stuff that the stuff that come with it. I feel like, that's the type of stuff I enjoy.
This will be your second year in the defense by Coach Ward. He told me last year that the year two is when when players really start to understand the why of the defense. How are you feeling now entering your second season playing for Coach Ward?
Nah, definitely. I'm feeling confident. Like, what I'm saying, I definitely feel like what he's saying is true. Like, what I'm saying, I think, like, what I'm saying, just looking back at this point, what I'm saying, just in relation to last year, and just looking where I'm at, and as far as the defense goes, I feel like, I'm looking at different things. With in the passing game, like I'm looking at more so looking at the offensive tendencies, like, I'm saying, things we're gonna get. I'm saying, just knowing the defense that we run. So just looking for different things at this point. Whereas last year, I was learning the defense and learning what the offense were gonna give us. Just being a year deeper into it now, I can kind of focus more on to what we might see in this coverage, and saying, things like that, and different tendencies from the offense, and I think that it'll be, it definitely, good to be, it'll help you play faster for sure.
Now you're one of the hardest hitters on this team, but who would you say is like the absolute hardest hitter on the Sun Devil defense?
Probably Rouser, my boy Rouser. I have to say my boy Rouser for real. I really feel like me and him, like, be like that weak side over there, like be a lot of heads bumping over there. But my boy Rouser, he coming down, he hitting some for sure.
Earlier, you mentioned where you one of the areas that you thought you improved the most last year was your leadership. Now is one of the kind of the veteran guys in that room. A room that also has a lot of veteran linebackers in there as well. How do you see yourself in terms of a leader on that defensive side?
I definitely feel like, I think, like, I feel like I'm that spark plug. No doubt. I definitely feel like, what I'm saying, a lot of the people on the defense, what I'm saying, like, they look to my energy, like, to get us going. I feel like I take that's a job I take seriously. What I'm saying, with it just being my position, and then, like, my personality, like, what I'm saying, I feel like that's something I wake up and I gotta bring that to the table every day. When I come here, just coming up here and giving it all I got, being vocal, having that energy, what I'm saying, because knowing that, my teammates gonna look to me for that energy. That's just things I take pride in, and I come up here and I make sure that I embrace that every single day.
This team now is not going to surprise anybody, at least externally. And going from the hunters from a season ago, now you guys are going to kind of have a target on your back with other teams coming for you as the hunted. What kind of change, if any, is there? Kind of making the shifting from kind of that coming in as an underdog to now the team that everybody's gunning for.
Um, Honestly, like, I feel like nothing changed. Like, I feel like, what the proof in the pudding. Like, I feel like you got to just work. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, like, 100 or 100, like, at the end of the day, like, we're gonna have to see them at some point. They're gonna have to see us at some point, and it's all gonna be off. It's gonna be all built off the preparation, like, what I'm saying, and what we did leading up to that point. So I feel like, we gonna definitely put ourselves in position. What I'm saying, take it day by day. Be process driven, like, what I'm saying, just like last season, and what I'm saying, just take it day by day and keep our head down. Worry about ourselves, and the rest will take care of itself.
Spring ball just about to open up. What are some of the goals that you've set for yourself? What do you want to get accomplished over the next 15 practices?
Like I said, I want to become a, like, what I'm saying, a better leader. I really want to, just really, I want to hone in on my passing game on the defense wise. This spring I want to hone in on that again, some more and keep improving in that area. I also want to improve, just cleaning up my blitzes, and things like that, and just I think that that's the biggest thing for me, and ultimately just coming out here having fun with my guys, and what I'm saying, just coming out here playing fast, having fun, and hitting, and it's feel good to go come out here and play some football again, no doubt.
Ultimately, what do you want these Sun Devil fans to see from you on the field in 2025?
Ah man, this like I'm saying, like I feel like 24, like it wasn't nothing, like what I'm saying, just sit back, man. Y'all gonna see, like it's gonna be a totally different Crook this year. Like I can say that much. Like y'all gonna see even better, way better improved Crook. A lot of fast, hard hitting. And just come out there having fun. Like we're gonna be turned, man. Whole defense, not even just me. Man. We're gonna be out here turned. Like it's gonna be fun to see. It's gonna be fun to see. I know last year was exciting. You know what I'm saying? Defense flying around. We got a lot of them same guys back. It's gonna be fun to get out there, fly around with them guys again, and what I'm saying, just turn up and play with our hair on fire. Like, I feel like that's what we did last year. We played physical. We hit hard. We gonna play to the clock was zero, and we were gonna have fun. And I feel like that was noticeable every time we watched us, and we're gonna come back out there like that this year, no doubt.
I'd like to thank Jordan for taking the time to talk with me for this episode. Make sure you are subscribed to Speak of the Devils on the podcast platform of your choice for more great sit down series episodes all off season long. And be sure to follow me on all things social media at BDenny29.